This is the College Football Enquirer. I am Andy Staples here with Ross Dellenger and Steven Godfrey, and we have games this weekend, gentlemen. And my favorite game of the weekend, the one I keep coming back to, the one I keep checking the weather report for, is that all-time classic. I can hear the John Facenda voice, the music. Classic Big Ten matchup between Oregon and Iowa.
The autumn wind is a raider.
I can't even say it with a straight face. Like, it's so weird to see this being a Big Ten game in November that matters. Oregon versus Iowa, but that's what it is. Like, if Iowa can upset Oregon, Iowa is very much in the playoff race. If Oregon wins, then they are still very much alive in the playoff race and headed toward an inevitable second appearance in the college football playoff in 2 years. This one's going to be so much fun. And again, like I said, guys, I keep checking the weather report because I want this to be an Iowa game.
What are we getting from the weather report? What's the latest?
I want it to be an Iowa
cold
game.
And rainy?
Yes.
Is that cold and rainy? Right.
That is currently headed toward that way of cold and rainy.
Which, given that it's Oregon, I don't think they'd probably shift a lot. They've dealt with that before. Is there a team in college football that you can think of, either now or historically, that has had this magical transmutative effect on its opponents at home, like the Iowa Hawkeyes? This is something we have talked a little bit about in our game previews this year, but we should really sit with it for a second, because we have seen some of America's most talented offenses, those years when Ohio State or Penn State or Michigan would come in and they would be loaded with NFL skill position players. And then they would play a rugby game, like for junior, like a junior high rugby game for 3.5 quarters. And the visiting team usually kicks a field goal. They win the game and they get the hell out of there, vowing to never go again, like a bad roadside motel. This is the Iowa effect. This is the America that Kirk Ferentz wants. I can't think of any other program in college football that does this so consistently.
I feel like the D'Antonio Michigan State teams did it a little bit, but not to this level. Not where they could drag you in. Like, their offense, like Iowa's offensive incompetence seems to rub off on the opponent.
Yes, one of my favorite college football games that I ever covered in person was the Big Ten championship between Iowa and Michigan State under Mark D'Antonio, in which Michigan put together, I believe it was an 83-play drive that took 6 days to end the game. And then at the end, when Michigan State won the Big Ten, Iowa fans across the streets of Indianapolis were celebrating, high-fiving each other. Do you remember why? Because they got to go to the Rose Bowl instead of having to go be fed into the Nick Saban machine in Dallas in the first round of the playoffs. They were legitimately excited because they got to go play in the Rose Bowl, get out of Iowa in January, and then they got stomped by Stanford. I was at that game too.
Remarkable. You go to Iowa and you get sucked into like this vortex of Iowa. And we saw it earlier this year, even with Indiana, right? Yeah. Even Indiana went there and they had trouble moving the ball consistently. They ended up only scoring 20 points, right? They won 20-15. And it seems like it happens to everybody. We saw Oregon go to Wisconsin maybe a week or two ago.
Well, no, they were in Eugene. Terrible weather that game, too.
Oh, they were in Eugene. Oh, that's right. Yeah. They were in Eugene. And play poorly enough that gives me pause in this game against Iowa. And obviously, Iowa's playing better. The Big Ten, the buzz on the Big Ten the last few weeks was that a lot of their middle sort of programs aren't ranked high enough by the media. And so we saw the CFP rankings came out. Iowa, who is not ranked, I think, in the AP poll, right, is ranked 20th in the CFP. And I think a lot of Big Teners I sort of got calls the last couple of days of, see, we told you, you writers don't know, that our middle of our pack teams are just as good as the SEC. Now, I don't know if I believe that, but they were happy to see 20th ranked Iowa, and they have a legit shot to, who knows, maybe run the table here and all of a sudden be in competition to be on the bubble if they can knock off Oregon, and then they have to play at USC. They host Michigan State, and then they go to Nebraska. So it's not easy.
Not easy, but if they win out, they're going to be in. And we talk about, I was joking about Iowa's offensive incompetence. They haven't been incompetent offensively of late. They've been quite competent. And like Mark Gronowski, their quarterback, coming off the ultimate game for a Kirk Ferentz quarterback against Minnesota in a 41-3 win. 12 of 19 for 135 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. That's all you need.
That's just Midwestern politeness, okay? That's just being humble and Midwestern, okay? You just want to acquit yourself accordingly. Don't leave a lasting memory and get out of there. I want to talk about FCS football because I thought it very interesting, and I didn't know which way this was going to go. When Mark Gronowski left South Dakota State, whereas everybody else left South Dakota State and went to Washington State, right? All of those players that went when Rodgers was hired as the head coach at Washington State. He goes to Iowa. I found that curious. Was that wanting to go to just do something different? Was it a better NIL offer? I didn't know how he'd fit. Obviously, Iowa, not necessarily friendly to quarterback stats or quarterback play in general. This has worked out really well. He has provided something that feels like heresy when you talk about Iowa offensive football and quarterback play, where like he's scooting around, guys. He's mobile.
Mm-hmm.
He's got 11 rushing touchdowns. And what?
Yeah.
Like he's out there. This is as Cam Newton as you're ever going to get at the University of Iowa under Kirk Ferentz.
Let's not listen. This is Brad Banks' erasure. Like that guy was awesome.
Man, I love Brad Banks. Here. That was maybe my favorite Iowa season. Not that I'm ever forced to pick a favorite Iowa season, but that was a fun year for the Hawkeyes.
What's your favorite Iowa season? It's a good game.
Yeah, it is, because you know what?
Iowa season.
Everybody likes a nap in the afternoon, Ross. Okay, you want to gently be lulled to sleep. You saw Nick Saban in that blanket, right? He was watching Iowa.
Curled up on the recliner. Yeah, he looks like he's ready to go and coach LSU, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's ready to go.
Shout out to Mr.
Like, sit up for your birthday cake. And he said he popped up like he was bloated from a spring.
I have a Miss Terry style wife too, and I saw no shame in that response to command. That's how things work, folks.
Iowa is still, it's still very much Iowa. I thought maybe there was going to be, sort of we've seen the last few years, obviously, more struggles than normal with Iowa. And you thought, every year you sort of think like, well, this is probably it for Kirk, right? This is probably the last hurrah. And here they are 6-2. And not only that, but so here are their total defense, pass defense, rush defense, scoring defense, rankings in the country. 4th, 5th, 10th, 4th. And then this is an interesting one. This is opponent, long scrimmage plays. So 10 plus yards. They're number 1 in the country. They've allowed.
So they're having it down here defensively, is what you're saying, Ross.
Yeah.
Here's what's interesting, Ross,
they're not number 1 in everything. Yeah.
When you pair those numbers with what Tim Lester's done, I'll stop making fun of Iowa. It's that simple, because since they got out of this really nasty quagmire of nepotism with Brian Ferentz, the former OC, notice the last name, Tim Lester, the former Western Michigan head coach, has come in. In his first season, they jumped from about 15 points per game, 15.4 to 27.7. That's not killing it, okay? You're not running like a 2000s Big 12 offense here. But you don't need to. You need to be in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 points a game at Iowa because of all the things we just discussed and how defined they are by defensive football. And then all of a sudden, you're going to turn things around. So you stop making fun of Iowa and you start celebrating that reductive style of football again.
Also, Oregon, word to the wise, do not punt to Caden Wetchen. Just don't. Don't do it. Bad things will happen. Punt out of bounds. It's not that complicated, but that is Iowa. What did we say for years and years throughout the Brian Ferentz era as the OC? If they could ever have a merely functional offense to go along with their elite defense and elite special teams, they would be a very dangerous team.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are there. They have a functional offense. It is a middle of the pack offense to go along with their elite defense and elite special teams.
One warning, if you're an Iowa fan, they're changing their uniforms. They're going blackout. They're going blackout.
Oh, blackout.
Oh, so the pants were
wait,
instead of yellow.
Blackout during the day?
Sorry, that was against Minnesota. I was pulling through my notes. They have worn alternate uniforms. I started tracking this because of Tennessee. I made that joke last week on the Tennessee blackout game, and I'm just curious if the Georgia effect is contagious. I think they were wearing their they are, again, wearing alternate uniform. I was right. It's in my notes.
Oh.
They are going to have alternate uniforms against the Ducks. You know what?
What is it?
Debate that's
Do
20
we know
years
what it
old.
is?
I don't like this. I'm gonna
They
pause
play
right
like a
here.
team
It
from the
says
1920s.
they're
So maybe
going
they should
all
have.
black.
They bring back the helmet, the 1920s helmet with just
They're
the one
going all-
bar across.
Ferentz said at the weekly that they're going to go all black. And
That's
this
weird
has
for a
to
2:30,
do
like a
with
daytime
Veterans
kickoff.
Day?
You don't see that often.
Has to do with Veterans Day. Okay.
I don't know.
Oh,
Sure.
okay. So they're
I'm
gonna.
not-
Well, they'll
yeah.
probably have the American flag and Tiger Hawk. So hey, when you're playing Oregon, you get crazy with the uniforms.
Yeah, I
This
know,
is
right?
Iowa's
This is
version
the
of getting
time to do it.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of where I was going with the bit.
Yeah.
I don't think Andy. I mean, the weather report is it's funny, but I don't think that'll affect Oregon necessarily.
It's essentially Pacific Northwest weather. let's not
right.
quibble here.
Yeah.
No. Hey, I'm going to try and say this with a straight face. This is what you wanted when you took on these schools. You wanted these these extra quality inventory games.
Yeah.
And
And
you
I
got
am
'em.
glad for this. I think this is going to be so much fun. And this is a good test for Oregon because we have sort of forgotten about Oregon.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they lost to
Yeah.
Indiana and we stopped talking about them. Now we will talk about them through the rest of the season because they're playing this game. They have to play USC. They have to play Washington. So they will be challenged the rest of the way. We've sort of been operating on the assumption that Oregon's just really good, just like last year. They're going to roll through this thing and maybe they will. But I'm curious, guys, do we reevaluate Oregon? And maybe we just need to see this game to do that. That they needed 2 overtimes to beat Penn State.
Yeah.
Oh.
Are we
Yeah.
sure that was because Penn State was good and Penn State broke after that? Or maybe Penn State was not good before and maybe Oregon.
It's not that good. Maybe they're like
yeah.
an 8-4, 9-3, and not a championship type contender. I mean, maybe we saw them struggle against a Wisconsin team that's been pretty bad all year.
Yep. But they
And
did that
then,
last
yeah.
year. They struggled at
Yeah.
Wisconsin last year.
Yeah. It's
and
just
went
the
13-0.
team that gets them. Yeah. No, true. It's good. It's a good point.
With USC and Washington later in the schedule, guys, I'd give a little credence to what Andy's saying here. Man, this is just like, to go back to what I was saying about good inventory, we keep falling back into these 2 narrative tropes of, man, the SEC is the new NFL. Week to week, you just got to survive. It's so tight. It's so competitive. And then we it seems like when we talk about Big Ten teams, it's like, we don't know if they've played anybody. We don't know if they played anybody.
But guys, it's going to get there. I keep saying this. In 5 to 7 years, the Big Ten is going to be just like the SEC. Minnesota is going to get better.
Yeah,
Purdue's going to get better.
You're not wrong, Andy. It's just that I feel like we do this every week with the Big Ten, and it's not a slight, it's not a disservice because it's true. Penn State imploded completely. So to question the validity of that win is totally legitimate. And they scored 20 points against Indiana. They gave Indiana one of the best games that Indiana's had all year. Maybe we could turn that around as some sort of proof of concept. But man, that Wisconsin game was rough.
The Oregon-Wisconsin game, yes.
Yes, for Oregon.
Yeah.
The Wisconsin-Oregon
No,
game
I
was,
agree.
like,
and
rough.
again, it was pouring down rain, so it's hard to move the ball in that kind of weather. But Wisconsin is terrible. And you were playing them at home.
Yes. So are we holding things back? Maybe. Are we going to hit a new gear? I'm just trying out my different sports writer tropes here. Maybe. Here's the good news. They can get out with the ugly win. If you're Oregon and you're looking at a playoff resume, you get out with the ugly win this week. You still have USC and Washington. That would be the full resume that you would need going into the postseason.
No, I feel very good about Oregon going into the playoff. Like if they can beat Iowa and USC and Washington, I feel great about them playing against anybody.
We should remember too. You brought up Penn State. Look, I mean, I remember being at that game and they were whipping them right for like 3 quarters. And so I know there was a big comeback and it ended up going to overtime. But I just sort of I'm remembering the Oregon for 3 quarters of sort of dominating Penn State. So I think this team is still, and Dante Moore has played really well, really fun player to watch, and I'm fascinated to see like how Kirk Ferentz and them are going to sort of try to slow him down. That seems to be sort of the matchup there. Him and who's the receiver Moore? The other Moore.
DeCorian Moore is the one.
Moore.
Like
yeah.
DeCorian Moore is the kind of athlete that usually when Iowa would go play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game, that they just get blown off the field because they couldn't compete with athletes like that.
Right.
And that's the part that I'm interested to see. How does Iowa handle that? Because Oregon has a few athletes like that. Mateo Uiagalelei
Yeah.
on the other side of the ball. Prime example. Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end. Freak.
I want to talk a little bit about this in case Iowa wins, and I'm going to head off my own mea culpa. I was of that group that criticized Iowa for years, saying like, they're very content in where they are. When the offense is decent and they're winning games and they're always kind of right there. And I'm going to kind of head to a Wisconsin comparison here, because Wisconsin and Iowa were always the best of the second tier in the Big Ten. But you're right, Andy. Anytime they went into a significant national title implication game against an Ohio State or Penn State or Michigan, whatever, man, you would see that gap, right? It was so noticeable. What's interesting to me is that Wisconsin said, let's blow it up and try something new. Hasn't worked out. Iowa has stayed the course despite mountains of criticism nationally against Ferentz for not modernizing. So here's what's interesting. You move forward, and now we're talking about Iowa as, hey, this is a burgeoning playoff team. This is a path. They've created a path to the playoff by not really changing anything. They're 10 points better because he fired his son, and he shouldn't have ever probably had his son in the OC position for that long. But things are it's all coming up black and gold, baby. I mean, like, if they win this game, they haven't really done anything different than they did in the Brad Banks era, Andy. And they're going to be in the playoff conversation.
And if you're Kirk and you have withstood this pressure for, especially probably the last 3 to 5 years, you've withstood this pressure from the fan base. You got a new AD who basically has sort of made you or pushed you into probably some of these changes. How satisfying, I'm sure, would it be for him to make the playoffs this year at 10-2, or just win this game this week where you're playing like the sort of new age college football program, right? NIL, all these athletes, they spread it around the field, they score bunches of points. Oh my gosh, it would be so satisfying for him.
One of these programs looks like they came from outer space, and one looks like they're playing during the polio vaccine's discovery.
Yeah.
And if I were Kirk Ferentz, and Kirk Ferentz is a lot classier human being than me, I would double middle finger everybody if I won this game. I'm like, see, I told you.
Yeah, but Andy,
none of you believed in me.
He was made to fire his son. He was made to fire his son after like one of the most historically inept offensive performances at the Big 2 level, Power 2, Big, whatever you want to call it. I mean, so Ross is right in the different direction, which is like Ferentz can be utilized in the modern era. He maybe did need some management and some guardrails. He did not need to be the authority. He needed to answer to somebody, because since he has started answering to someone, hey, they're back, baby.
Congratulations to Beth Getz, then. Good job, Beth Getz.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Way to manage. We don't ever say that, right? Very rarely am I
she's done a very good job. And that's not an easy situation, because remember, at that point, when Beth Getz gets the job, like, Bob Stoops is already retired. So Kirk Ferentz at that point is the longest tenured FBS football coach. Like, he's got more juice than just about anybody. And it's a delicate political situation to walk into if you're Beth Getz, and I think she's navigated it really well. Yeah. And they've come out the other side in a really good place, whether they win or lose this game.
It's a fun situational comedy, like where you're coming to manage a team and you're 30, 40 years younger than them. That's not exactly the easiest thing to do.
I'm sure it's an uncomfortable position. And she was the AD in the MAC at Bowling Green, Ball State.
I believe it was Ball State.
Ball State, and moved over to be a deputy, and thought she would probably, I don't know if she thought this, but a lot of people probably assumed that she would get the full-time job. And then I remember there was like some, Kirk is obviously like involved in the hire and all that goes on with that. And so it was just in general, probably a very uncomfortable position, but she's navigated out, as you said, Andy, pretty well. And she's handled things. She handled things well. And now here they are with an offense that is at least remotely competent.
Can we make this a segment? Good job, athletic director.
Good job,
I think it would be good for me personally.
Way to go at your job.
Way to go, AD. Yeah, I like it.
I like AD
of the week.
Thing about an athletic director. Yeah,
AD of the week.
Way to go, suit.
The internal competition for that, listen, we would get so many texts of, hey, When can I be AD of the week?
Oh God, it would kill Ross's phone.
Oh, let's do. Okay, this is a standing segment from now on. AD of the week.
AD of the week.
Yeah.
AD of the
but
week.
we should make it. We can't
Ross,
be too serious. You know, we should really make it like a funny sort of segment because
look who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
Ross, you
listen,
pick
it just depends on the week. Like,
yes.
So one week
AD of the week
it may be an AD who did a great job hiring a coach or navigated a very complicated situation. One week it may be the AD that comes up with some sort of Branch Rickey style, like incredible promotion.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Coastal Carolina. They have free concessions and it's helped attendance.
Chance Miller,
stuff like that.
Chance Miller.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, nominated for AD. Well, Beth gets one this week, so Chance maybe next week.
So what we're gonna do is, Ross, you guys can pick it, and then I'm forced to say nothing but nice things for like 45 seconds. I feel like this is
We'll force you into saying nice things about administrators.
Yeah, I want like a star wipe. Our producer TJ is listening. I want something that's like very like the more you know, like AD.
TJ's way too young to know what a star wipe is. But
really,
I had the video toaster rocking back in TV production when I was in high school.
Yeah, star wipes. This show needs more star wipes.
if TJ has any gumption to him, he won't worry about what management's going to think, and he would just star wipe the hell out of this segment.
Or he's just going to cut this entire part of the segment.
Probably true.
Probably, yeah.
When we come back,
congrats,
Ross's Congressional Minute ties into the biggest game in the Big 12, which also is one of the biggest games in the country. BYU's going to Texas Tech. They're playing for the top of the Big 12. We'll talk about it when we come back. We're back at the College Football Enquirer, and remember, if you want to see us in vivid living color, if you want to see how Ross's hotel room is absolutely beautiful.
It's because it's not a white wall, Andy. Look how good it is when there's like a nice color to the
lighting too. The lighting in this.
Yeah.
I told him before the show, people pay thousands of dollars for lighting like this.
Yes, so I'm back home in Biloxi. This is a hotel I'm staying in that was just opened a couple months ago by my aunt and uncle. They own it and they built it. They operated it. Yeah, it's in downtown Ocean Springs, Mississippi.
Shout it out.
Gulf Coast, baby. So if you want to see Ross in his element on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, go to the Yahoo Sports Network. You turn on your smart TV. You click on that Yahoo Sports Network icon. You can watch the College Football Enquirer, all the other amazing Yahoo Sports Network shows. Also, if you're on a phone, a tablet, a laptop, it doesn't matter the device. Go to yahoosports.tv and you can watch all of our shows, including the College Football Enquirer. Ross, it is time for your Congressional Minute because it ties into one of the biggest football games of the week.
Yes, I'll try to be better than I was last time. I think I was down with a bad cold. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was like 103.
Godfrey, by the way, the hotel is a very simple name. OS Hotel.
OS Hotel. Everybody, for your Gulf Coast vacation needs, OS Hotel.
There you go. A plug. All right. Yep.
Ready? Go.
A big meeting went down last week on Capitol Hill. The 3 senators, 2 Democrats, Maria Cantwell and Chris Coons, and 1 Republican, Ted Cruz, actually sat in a room together and met for a couple hours. While no immediate progress was made, the meeting is notable. A meeting, notable. But how? Remember that Congress moves at pace slower than even the NCAA governance. It crawls. The fact that Cruz and Cantwell, very much not like-minded people, got into a room for 2 hours and spoke about college sports is indeed progress. Hurdles remain, though, among them, including how much of an antitrust exemption to grant the NCAA and conferences, as well as the employment issue. Should college athletes be deemed employees? The talk marches forward now as Cruz attempts to produce some kind of bill, whether bipartisan or not, that could be combined with Cantwell's SAFE Act, potentially, and then also added to the SCORE Act. Speaking of the SCORE Act, Texas Tech booster and billionaire Cody Campbell, for the first time, came out publicly now in support of the SCORE Act to pass the House. It comes 2 months after he helped delay the bill by rallying House Republicans against the legislation. Campbell hopes that the SCORE Act can at one point, when it gets to the Senate, be combined with the SAFE Act and something put through with Cruz. But none of this can happen, guys, unless the government returns to action, and it's shut down, and it shows no signs of returning.
Slower as the season goes, Ross. We need a better conditioning coach. I blame the training table.
I've been sick for about a month. It's not helping.
I hear you, dog.
If you want to hear more about the government shutdown, there are about 2,000 other podcasts you can listen to. So go listen to one of those if you want to hear about that. But Cody Campbell flipping on the SCORE Act.
Yeah.
is notable, which suggests to me, Ross, I don't know about you, that perhaps compromise is on the way.
Ooh.
Something that looks more like a blend of the SCORE Act, which is the one in the House, and the SAFE Act, which is the one in the Senate that happens to mirror exactly what Cody Campbell wants. I would imagine that is the compromise that they are headed towards.
So here is, I mean, I think that's right along those lines, but here's the big compromise that happened, and I didn't mention it in the Congressional Minute. I should have, but Senate or House leaders have committed to Cody Campbell that they will hold a hearing on the Sports Broadcasting Act. In the Senate, Ted Cruz and Murray Cantwell, I think, they may potentially hold a hearing too. So that was one of the compromises, is just at least having some kind of deeper discussion about the Sports Broadcasting Act. And so we'll see what comes out of those hearings, if they do happen. And they probably won't happen until, obviously, the government returns, but also after the House passes the SCORE Act. Because you remember, it's very notable, Andy, that he's now on board with this, because there were sort of two main reasons that the SCORE Act got delayed from passing when it was supposed to back in September. One of them was Cody basically convincing 6, 8, maybe even 10 House Republicans to come off of the bill because he didn't support it for various reasons. The other thing was 10 FCS conferences, or non-FBS conferences, were not against the bill, were against parts of the bill enough to convince their Congress people to come off of it too. So both of those things now, they're both good, right? The 10 non-FBS leagues have sent a letter in support of the SCORE Act, and then Cody Campbell is now supporting it. So it should pass now very much along party lines, probably along partisan lines, because the Congressional Black Caucus, several members of which I think are moving in the direction of supporting it, but aren't there yet. But I don't think they're necessarily needed for it to get through the House. What's needed once it gets through the Senate is some kind of compromise, obviously, from Cantwell and Cruz getting together, taking the SCORE Act, taking the SAFE Act, taking whatever Cruz has been working on for a year now, combining them, and something coming out of that. There is more. I've said this now for a few times this past year. There is more optimism than ever that happens, but that's not saying much. I mean, it's a low bar.
But the fact that they're willing to bend on some of this stuff, because essentially the SCORE Act was going to recreate the NCAA and turn back the clock 40 years. It was never going to pass the way it was written. So they are going to have to make some tweaks to it, and they might be able to do something. Who knows? If they're willing to actually make compromises, they may actually get to something that kind of works.
Let me ask you all a question.
Yes,
right now, the talk between Cantwell and Cruz, I think the big sort of hurdle is how much antitrust protection to give the NCAA and conferences for their rules. How broad is it? How narrow for certain things? What should, if any, the conferences in the NCAA be able to do without being sued? What issues should
antitrust
be
exemption should they get?
granted?
They should be included in the Broadcasting Act. That's the only antitrust exemption they should get, because it is kind of unfair that the NFL and MLB and NBA get it, and they're essentially operating the same business and they can't. That's not fair. So either take it away from the pro leagues and let them sue each other over everything, or let them have the same courtesy as people who are running exactly the same business they are.
Godfrey?
I'll defer to Andy on that one. Yeah, because my first reaction is none, burn it down, hold them accountable. But
I don't think they should be allowed to collude on wages. We don't let anybody else do that.
Correct. But I would say yes, you treat them like the pro league that they are. And that would also mean affording them the same privileges and luxuries. I'm fine with that. Sure.
Yeah. So there are three, I think, main sort of debate issues that I think are being talked about when it comes to granting protection. One, eligibility standards, obviously. We talked about that a lot on the show and all the lawsuits the NCAA is facing. I think over 40 now for individual eligibility extensions. So number one, eligibility standards. Number two, transfer policy and standards when it comes to transferring. And number three is basically the revenue cap and collectives and the compensation. So those are sort of the three issues. And let's just say they're far apart.
They should be allowed to set a salary cap unless they collectively bargain it. I mean, that's everybody else figured it out. How come you can't? And the eligibility thing, I think they should just let it go through the courts. I really do. Because I
they're
think
winning so far. Yeah, they're winning so far, right? If it gets to the Supreme Court, they might win. Right now, the record, so there's been around 35 to 40 lawsuits filed on behalf of players wanting an extension of eligibility. And of the ones that a judge has made a preliminary sort of ruling, the NCAA wins about 2 out of every 3 right now.
I think that's one where because they'll argue it's pro-consumer. It is. Mm-hmm. I do think the consumer wants college students playing college sports. They don't want career college athletes. Mm-hmm. Like they don't want 35-year-olds.
Well, think about the kids in high school that certainly want a spot. That's it.
Yeah. No, I think if you want to make a pro-competitive argument, then I think that's fine. Because you could say, and people will believe this, because I believe this to be true, and I don't think, how anti most of this stuff I am. I think the public wants some eligibility standards, like 5 to play 5 or 5 to play for whatever that is. They don't want people in college for 8 years playing sports for 8 years. They don't.
Yeah.
What if, as a side note, and I'm just the idiot here, what if there's an artificial salary cap enforced by a sudden strengthening of the clearinghouse's standards on individual NILs? What if they found a sneaky little end around because the house settlement means that the other party has agreed to these terms, that the clearinghouse suddenly tamps down on what one side has called the Wild West of NIL deals in recent years, and all of a sudden that NIL is dramatically reduced because the clearinghouse is stamping no on everything?
The players have agreed to those terms by opting into the house settlement. Mm-hmm. The people doing the paying have not. So you would still get lawsuits that they would lose.
Right.
So that's the problem. You can try to strengthen it. You're going to lose lawsuits if you do that.
Just hypothetical based on things I'm hearing. That's all. Just hypothetical. Feels like there's a last gasp. Feels like there might be a last gasp in Indianapolis.
That's what they want to do. That they've said that all along, but it will fail.
Feels like maybe some folks in Indianapolis right now are trying to push that clearinghouse as the new enforcement arm.
Well, and they've also set it up where you saw the proposal of, if it gets revealed to the school has X number of days. All that does is encourage schools to stick their heads in the sand. What deal? We never saw any deal.
Right.
So
yep,
we'll see. But this is interesting because, like you mentioned, Cody Campbell is now in support of the SCORE Act passing in the House. Cody Campbell, we're about to see his works on the field this Saturday. BYU goes to Texas Tech. That's your college game day game. It is a huge game in the Big 12, possibly the biggest game in the Big 12 so far this season. BYU is currently undefeated. Texas Tech has 1 loss to Arizona State. The winner of this game is in control of the race to the Big 12 title game. And I don't know about you guys. I look at the numbers, especially defensively. The money Cody Campbell spent was spent well.
I think that the last few years, when you look at Tech, they've struggled defensively, number one. They've struggled to out-physical sort of people on the lines. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of where they beefed up, right? In the portal, and where all the money, the much of it, the oil money, sort of helped, was getting players on the line, right? They got 2 big transfers on the offensive line, 2 big transfers on the defensive line. One's leading the nation, David Bailey leading the nation in sacks right now on the defensive line. Howard Sampson, a former Texas guy, they got him in the portal. They got another offensive lineman in the portal that was an all AAC player. They have two all sort of G5 players that they basically plucked the best two offensive linemen from the group of five, and they plucked two of the best defensive ends in the country as well, and sort of put to me, those four players were the essential sort of grabs that they got in this number one ranked transfer portal class that I couldn't actually get anybody to tell me for the story that ran today or yesterday how much their portal class, just the portal class, cost. I'm just gonna guess that it was 5 to 7 million, potentially upwards of $10 million just for the 15 or so 17 players that they got from the portal. But it has helped.
If they wind up in the playoff,
obviously.
That's a bargain.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Oh,
for sure. Because the overall number, they raised 40. And so from July 2024 to July 2025, they raised $49 million. Now that was for all the rosters, right, at Texas Tech. And it also included some money that went back to the previous teams, the previous roster. But there's probably a good bet that they front loaded this past spring for this roster at least $20-25 million, for the football roster that they sort of front loaded. At least I would guess that's what that number is, and we're seeing that play out on the field. I mean, it's not only about the linemen, right? They got their interception leader was from Mississippi State. They got him. Their really good safety was from North Dakota. He's like a 6-year player. They got 3 6-year players on the team. It's clear, right? The whole focus of this year was go all in. This is the year we can do it. And right now, so far, right, except for the little toe stub in Tempe, they look pretty dang good.
They do, and they're dominant defensively. They're playing a BYU team that just kind of has lived dangerously since last season. Like Kalani Sitake's team plays close games, and the last game. So this game is I think it's a 10.5 point spread. Texas Tech favored by 10.5. The last time BYU lost by more than 7 points was November 2023. They play close games. They win close games.
Yeah.
That line just doesn't feel right. And
the line doesn't.
Yeah, I'm no expert on this. It's an offense versus defense characterization. So it's Texas Tech against that BYU defense. This is probably the best defense they've seen. This is the check-in point again. We did this when they played Utah, and that was more like, all right, let's establish proof of concept. You pull all these high-dollar pieces in. Let's see if it's actually functional. Check. Salt Lake City was a win. We go on. They've taken a loss. Maybe you can spend a loss. Probably not the loss you wanted to spend. This is must win, I think. I know mathematically it's not must win. I know that there are situations in which they can still survive, but this is a playoff or bust campaign. And we're going to see, again, it's kind of everything I said going into Utah, except now just with higher stakes. That we are evaluating Texas Tech one way all year because it's so much less about what's happening on the field for the Red Raiders and so much more about all the people across the industry that are watching the way the roster was constructed, how the money was spent. Also, some people took a little umbrage with how flashy they were about talking about it, about the media round that Cody and Tech went on in the offseason. There are schools that are spending money that aren't talking about it quite the same way as they are in Lubbock, which, by the way, I don't feel like everyone has to have an opinion on this. I don't really mind because Texas Tech is a historic have-not when you're talking about the helmets and the brands of college football. It makes sense to go out there and put a PR campaign to use. The problem is, guys, they don't make the playoff. It's a bust. They make the playoff. Andy said this already, what, 8, 9, 10, $15 million. That's chump change if you make the playoff. You make all that back plus, considerably so, in so many different ways. So it's that simple. Can they spin their way out of having anemic line play historically and being more than just an air raid offense? We're going to see one more test. If they pass this test, I think I'm bought in, and I think they're a playoff team.
Godfrey, you bring up a good point about them talking about the money, unlike so many other schools that choose not to, or even purposely, intentionally, silence their donors.
Yeah.
Oh, we can't talk about that. We can't talk about the money. Like, we're in a new age. You can talk about whatever in this age, apparently. Think about politically, think about how the world is changing. Like, everybody talks about anything and says anything they want. And so Texas Tech has sort of taken that and kind of ran with it. And it was one of the parts of my story of asking these donors, like, because the donors do think that they're, in a way, and administrators at the school as well think they are, in a way, being unfairly cast as like the only program that spends money right on their roster.
Wow.
And in some regard, they're probably spending more than, I'm guessing, 95%.
Can we agree that everybody needs to stop whining about that?
Yeah.
Because one, they're not.
Right.
The Oregon people whine about that too. Everybody says we're the only ones who spend money. Everybody spend. Yeah, we know. Miami people whine about that too. Quit whining about it.
Okay,
be proud like the Texas
It doesn't
Tech
matter.
people.
We do it. And Texas Tech is, they're proud. They're like, hey, we're spending the money. We're pouring our resources in. And it's a good marketing, promotional, and recruiting play.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Miami suddenly being sheepish about their ostentatious displays. My God. It bothers. You can't do both. You can talk about how you're committed to the future and all that stuff, but you can't then turn around and say we're being unfairly targeted. College football hates a usurper. They absolutely hate new money. This is a maxim that was laid out. I think Bill Connolly was the first person to ever say that, and I kind of stole it. Like, I stole Andy's merit badgers. College football hates a usurper. And I think this will be true until the end of time. Now, if you can survive long enough, like sometimes I think about a program like TCU. Think about all the hopping they did through realignment, and they kind of built their way in to where it didn't feel quite so weird that they went to a college football national championship game. But generally, it takes decades. It takes a full generation of human beings to accept you into the college football, the top end, the elite, the helmets, the brands, whatever you want to call it. Look at the road Boise traveled. When I was coming up in this job, I would go to cover SEC games or Big 12 games at tailgates with classic teams, and they would constantly make fun of these were teams that didn't play Boise. They would just make fun of, they got a blue turf and they're always on TV. Like, how dare, it's a really how dare you. And so that's what Texas Tech is experiencing right now, is how dare you. As if they don't spend money like it's going out of style and they ain't richer than 4 foot of a bull's ass.
As if Texas and Texas A&M haven't spent ungodly amounts of money.
Like, there aren't literal jams at regional airports every time Texas plays a road game. This is nonsense. The difference is we accept one and we relegate the other.
Yeah. No, it's 100%. When through the course of reporting on that Texas Tech story, the Texas and Texas A&M came up quite a bit, as you might imagine. And one of the, and I'm just like realizing, when you guys have both probably been in this position, you talk to so many people for a story, you have so many quotes and you just can't use them all. But there was one quote I meant to get in the story. I'm literally, as we're talking about it, realizing I forgot to put it in there. But Cody Campbell said to me, and I'll just say it now since I didn't use it, but Cody Campbell said to me, I think it's funny the fact that Texas and Texas A&M say, or I'm sorry, he was talking about just Texas, University of Texas. He was saying Texas always says that, or all our money doesn't come from oil. Ha! That's laughable. All of their money comes from oil. And so that was Texas and Texas A&M came up quite a bit with the donors about how, they obviously don't talk about it like Texas Tech does. And then they criticize maybe privately what Texas Tech is doing, and it's just steamed the Red Raiders up. And I just want to unfold.
I get it.
This is what I want to unfold. I want Texas Tech to get in that playoff and either host, right? Could you imagine Lubbock hosting as like a 6 seed, right? Or if they win the Big 12.
Now, Ross, they're hosting right now in the bracket. They're hosting Oregon.
Well, that would be amazing, but even better if Texas A&M stumbles or if Texas wins out or something, them hosting Texas or Texas A&M in a first-round game. It's possible, especially like if somehow A&M, loses to Texas at the end of the year and doesn't make the SEC championship game, or does make the SEC championship game and loses or something, whatever. They could be like the 9 seed or the 10 seed and have to go to Lubbock. Sign me up.
It never ceases to amaze me how old money and new money factor into everything we do in this sport. And by the way, when the hell did oil money become a pejorative in Texas?
Yeah. What did Texas make its money on? Artisan coffee? Like, what do we think they made their money on?
Get your head out of your ass. God, this is. I'm not from Texas. I don't have a dog in the hunt, but I've often heard people who are alumni of other non-Texas schools be like, you just don't know where some of that elitism comes rushing in logically to a conversation. I'm starting to figure it out.
Yeah. Guys, one more thing before we move on to I've Got a Feeling. The zombie rosters of Auburn and LSU will be playing for the first time since they fired their coaches. Do we think either one of those has a chance? Auburn plays at Vanderbilt. LSU plays at Alabama. Do we think either one of those has a chance?
I want to answer this kind of. I wanted to do something in the offseason on this show where we tally up what I call like all the dead games. All the games that were basically not rendered like null and void, but there's certainly something missing from an LSU-Alabama game. I think I said this off mic to you guys when we were planning this week, like, oh, man, LSU plays Bama this week. We're not even talking about it. Like, our anchors this week are Oregon, Iowa, and Texas Tech BYU. That's insane, right? So I don't think that they're going to be anything formidable against. There's so much going on in Baton Rouge right now that, like, the term distraction, while overused, I mean, like, no.
Can I introduce a new segment again?
Yeah.
To go along with AD of the Week? Ross explains LSU. All right, Ross. I want you to explain to me the difference between an interim AD and an acting AD. Because I think they're the same thing, but LSU's president clearly thinks there's something different.
Ross, is this something to do with Napoleonic Code that we don't know?
Could be Godfrey. Napoleonic Code. Yes, that sort of the Cajun lingo to, it's a different world down there. And I say it to people all the time. There are two places in the country that I've visited, and I think I've said on the show before that I think feel like a different country that you're in. Right.
Yes, sir.
South Florida and South Louisiana. Like they just, it feels like you're in a completely different country. And I think what's happened at Baton Rouge the last 2 weeks sort of has played out. So let's talk about that. Like the interim athletic director got promoted, Verge Osbury, when they fired Scott Woodward last week. And it was a firing. It wasn't some, amicable parting. Scott Woodward didn't knock on the board of the governor's door and say, hey, I'd like to resign. That's not what happened. I think it was, you're going to get fired next week by the governor. So let's come in and talk about this buyout, blah, blah, blah. So Verge Osbury gets promoted to interim athletic director last week. Verge has been around the program for virtually as long as anybody in Baton Rouge, played at LSU from Louisiana. I think he's been an administrator there for at least 30 years, maybe almost 40 years. And he's sort of been deputy for probably the last 15, number 2 in the athletic department. He's politically connected as well as anybody in the state. He basically serves as the last few years as the liaison between the Louisiana legislature and LSU athletics, a position, by the way, that Scott Woodward 25 years ago served in for Mark Emmert, the then chancellor at LSU. So it wasn't surprising when he got promoted to interim. And I expected after he got promoted, the expectation was after the search, for the coach, and after the coach is hired, and if everything goes well, Verge was going to be promoted to the full-time athletic director. Like that's how it was explained to me. It happened very quickly this week, quicker than I ever imagined. Day one, not even day one of the new president being, hired. All of a sudden, he was sort of promoted. And now, at a public event yesterday, the president was asked about his promotion of Verge and sort of acted a little bit like he's not the permanent full-time AD, but at the same time, he removed the interim. Look, you remove the interim, he's the full-time AD. That's sort of what it means. So even people at LSU were sort of dumbfounded and confounded by what the president said. Now, he tried to sort of explain it a little more later yesterday on a New Orleans radio interview, but it sort of added to the confusion. So I'm not exactly sure what the hell is going on, and I don't know if the people actually at the school they're fairly confused as well.
Ross, I got to bring this up because it hasn't been talked about. Verge Osbury was suspended 4 years ago because he was found to be, quote, not credible by Hush Blackwell, was the law firm that performed the independent audit of the Title IX violations that happened in LSU athletics. So he was essentially found to be not credible in either obfuscating or covering up an assault from one student athlete to another, a male to a female in a relationship. He was suspended. He had to take sexual misconduct training. Did this happen? Have we memory hold this? It just seems like politically in any other circumstance at a major institution, that this would probably prevent you from taking this job so soon at the same place. Like, his name is all over the Hush Blackwell report. It's right. I'm just kind of stunned this hasn't come up.
Not only that, Godfrey, that usually that in that case that this would be a case where no longer that person would be promoted. Not only that, but I think there's a lot of people that are in Verge's position around the country, and if that report came out at the time, he'd have been immediately fired. Right.
Correct.
Instead, he was suspended. He couldn't go to a game. I think he couldn't go to a sporting event for a year. He didn't go to any football games at least 1 year. And you know what? I think that it just speaks to a couple things. One, the different country that South Louisiana exists in, this world, this bubble down there. And two, how incredibly politically connected that Verge Osbury is in the state
Ross,
of Louisiana.
There's connected and there's mobbed up.
Yeah.
Okay. And to take that the amount of damning evidence that came out in the Hush Blackwell report, where it kind of felt like, Ross, it was framed for him to take the fall at the time in a transition period for LSU athletics, where it didn't fall on one of the head coaches. It didn't really fall on one of the bigger names. It didn't fall on Scott Woodward, obviously.
Well, it fell on Les a bit. Remember, Les was eventually
they
fired.
Got less but they got less in hindsight.
Correct.
So it's someone who's already out of the
people at the school. Yeah, you're right.
This trick is pulled very often by a lot of athletic directors when they welcome in an investigation, as long as we can pin it on the guys who aren't here anymore, especially if it invalidates a coach's buyout. That's a great trick. Like Tennessee pulled that trick, right? They saved a lot of money on Jeremy Pruitt that way. I'm blown away. This is beyond connected, Ross. This is just this guy's got a horseshoe up his ass, or he's got a get out of jail free forever card. This is amazing.
What also, the Wade Roos, the new president, was asked about that yesterday, and he said, I believe he told the reporter there, who has done a really good job, and I want to give her credit. Let me make sure to see. Piper Hutchinson has done a really good job covering the LSU presidential search and all this stuff, and she asked Wade Roos at an event yesterday about Verge Osbury's the Title IX investigation that produced the Hush Blackwell. And I think he said, well, I don't know much about that. Not great.
Jesus.
Yeah, that wasn't great. Because you would think before you make a decision to promote or elevate, somebody, that you would know deep about their past. But again, I think it just speaks to the fact that there is a situation down there in Baton Rouge where you have connection to so many people that a lot of this doesn't matter.
Yeah, Title IX violations and assaulting women, they don't care. The governor's not mad about that. He's mad about losing football games and the cost of a buyout. Call it a spade. It is what it is. If that's how you're going to operate, again, I keep going back to this. Educated agents, people who are at the top of their game representing the best and brightest minds in college football. You're trying to hire a head coach right now. You're trying to hire the best head coach right now in college football because you have national title standards. And this is what you're coughing up right now? There is no messier situation in college football than LSU. And Auburn's open. How many times do I have to say that?
I think, let me add one more thing. I think part of because I was surprised it happened so quickly, like I said, that Verge was elevated, even though the intention, I think, was to do it at some point. That it happened so quickly is easily explainable, and that is the coaching search. I think that the pressures of sort of stability, right, and all that stuff, end Verge's relationships with the agent world and the coaching world. It was just to provide sort of stability with the coaching search in a time of obviously sort of chaos there. And
that's the
I would bet
version of stability.
I would bet in a few months it changes.
I would bet as well.
Throwing that out there.
And if
Wade
it
Rouse
doesn't,
certainly hinted at that.
yeah. And if it doesn't, but you just got to message that before I'll get off this. But just
LSU's historically bad at PR, and they continue to be terrible.
Well, you just keep the interim, right? You just keep the interim. But again, I think they didn't want to do that because of the search. But now it puts you in this position where it's like, well, we pulled the interim, but he's not permanent, like a long term.
You're gonna fire a head coach, and you're gonna put the weight of that firing on the AD and essentially fire him too in a press conference about SNAP benefits. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. This is a message to every
Godfrey.
You have to have a plan.
There's no plan. There's never a plan.
You guys are Auburning so badly, and when you Auburn in Louisiana, it's something exponentially worse. To Ross's point.
We will talk a lot more about Louisiana politics as the LSU coaching search turns, but we have to get back to the field. When we come back, I've got a feeling. Three games, 3 picks. You may want to fade us. I'm warning you now. We'll be right back. We're back at the College Football Enquirer, and it's time for everyone's favorite segment to do the opposite of I've got a feeling.
You think football is still fun? I feel great, man. I got a bad feeling about this.
Each of us will pick a game that we have a very strong feeling about. Godfrey, you're not riding San Diego State again. Like the San Diego State isn't going to let anybody score is such a money pot.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'll say this really quickly. I wanted to come back and hear San Diego State, but I feel like I would get booed out of the room. So I'm going to take Tulane in a rebound in a very, very important G5 matchup for the 12 slot. The playoff, they're going to Memphis on Friday night. I'm going to go vibes and take we got killed by UTSA in pretty much every aspect of offense. We're going to fix that before we go see Ryan Silverfield's Memphis. So I'm going to take Tulane. I think it's at 6.5. Currently.
Yeah, Tulane is plus 6.5 in that game, which feels like a pretty big spread for a game of that magnitude in that conference. But that one's going to be a huge game. It's Friday night, and I imagine we will all be watching that one.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. G5 playoff elimination game. Hey, Andy, you mentioned yesterday or earlier this week, you were talking about the Clemson-Florida State game, and Ari, I think, mentioned you'd be a nut to bet your money on this game, right?
Yes, psychopath.
Yeah. Well, sign me up because I'm taking the Tigers at home, 2.5 point under. No, 2.5 point favorite.
Favorites.
Yeah, 2.5 point favorite at home against Florida State. I think Dabo and the boys bounce back against the Noles, and if this result does transpire as my feeling is, it could be an interesting Sunday in Tallahassee, I think.
Florida State looked great against Wake Forest last week.
Yeah.
Great. But if they just flounder here, and look, Clemson is not good this year. If Clemson does not win this game, they will go 0-4 in ACC play at home this year.
I just can't see that happening. That's part of the pick. It's like, I can't see this actually happening. But
here's why I'm invested in this game really fast. It's probably going to be for bowl eligibility for the winner. Okay. We can get Dabo at his angriest and his worst he's ever been in his career in the Dukes Bowl, which they could win, and then he would have to be covered in mayonnaise this season. I have hope for this outcome.
And really, what Mike Norvell is playing for is someone giving him $57 million to not work, or getting doused with mayonnaise.
Or mayonnaise.
Like, those are the two options.
It all ends in mayonnaise.
Yeah. One really quick bit before, Andy, you go. The Norvell buyout is mitigated, right? It's reduced. Right? Norvell's in his he's in his 40s. He'll almost certainly, if this all transpires, coach again. So just keep that in mind, I think.
Yeah. No. Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be that bad. Like, if Ryan Silverfield were to get another job from Memphis, bringing Mike Norvell back wouldn't be the dumbest thing in the world.
I was just about to say that.
Or Arkansas?
Maybe. maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know that Arkansas is gonna be able to sell that if he's just gotten fired. But
yeah, it's true.
No, that's a lot of.
But Memphis has seen him at his best.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
I've got a feeling, and hold on, I'm going to check the weather right now.
Oh boy,
I don't think it's changed since we started the show, but I'm telling you, I'm checking the Iowa City weather pretty much every 5 minutes. So we now have a 50% chance of rain at kickoff, 44 degrees. I get that's Pacific Northwest weather too, but I'm telling you right now, I just watched Oregon's offense in the rain against Wisconsin. It was not pretty at all, and this is a much, much better defense. Give me the Hawkeyes +6 at home against the Ducks.
I don't know if you've been this fired up about something all season.
I like your
You've
feeling.
been on this Iowa thing for
It's
like
good
3
feeling.
weeks. Let's go. All right.
Because I've said, just have a functional offense. What's it gonna? Please have a functional offense. I just want to see it once in my life, and now we're seeing it.
Yeah,
and it's amazing.
All right.
Like I just want an Iowa offense in the 40s, not 40 points like the rankings, like the 40s nationwide. And that's
all of the amazing offensive football skill position play that's going on across a sport with 133 teams, and Staples is just beside himself because Iowa can finally put a 3 on the board in 3-0 on the board on offense. This is what's got you right now. I love it.
But they've come so far. Hey, Sunday morning, we'll talk about it one way or the other, whether the Ducks win or the Hawkeyes win. We'll talk about that. Texas Tech and BYU. Zombie Auburn and Vanderbilt, zombie Alabama and LSU, zombie LSU and Alabama. All of it we'll talk about when we come back on Sunday morning. We'll wrap it all up on the College Football Enquirer.